Alrighty guys, welcome back here to another live stream, my friends. I hope you guys have all been doing well out there and having you guys as a great self to your day so far. We are going to be going over a lot of things in today's live stream. We are going to mainly be going over Hurricane Milton, which has already formed in the Gulf of Mexico, but we'll also be doing a little bit of live coverage up here towards the Mid-Atlantic and New England states, because we do have some warnings ongoing that we weren't really expecting, but we will definitely take care of that for you guys. So feel free to stay tuned throughout the live stream, and feel free to leave any questions, comments, or concerns in the chat. But don't forget to subscribe and like too as well if you haven't already, and make sure to click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I do my next live stream, and I'm pretty sure I will be doing one of these next few days, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But let's first go ahead and talk about Hurricane Milton, which is already ongoing in the Atlantic Ocean, or even the Gulf of Mexico. And as you guys can see, the latest from the National Hurricane Center really does show this a pretty strong hurricane. We're talking a Category 1 hurricane as of right now, but this will likely continue to strengthen into a major hurricane as it continues to head to the east. Okay, we will likely be seeing this making landfall somewhere around the Tampa Bay area, so you guys, in between Cape Coral all the way up there towards Cedar Key, need to be keeping an eye on this extremely closely, but especially you guys in the Tampa Bay area need to be paying attention to this even more, as this will likely cause a lot of problems. Even if it doesn't make landfall as a major hurricane, you guys still will likely see a lot of impacts. So make sure you guys are getting prepared right now before this does really cause a lot of landfall. And one of our biggest concerns is flooding. Okay, we do have the potential for anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of rainfall in this orange color that you see. Okay, that does really indicate a high likelihood of some flash flooding right there. But even parts of southern Florida could definitely see quite a bit of rainfall too as well, especially if the system really does stay on the stronger side of things. So we definitely really need to be keeping an eye out for some potential flooding out there. And one of our other concerns is how high the risk for flash flooding is. Okay, we are talking a moderate risk for flash flooding across parts of Florida. We're pretty much talking areas along and north of Tampa Bay likely to see that highest risk for flash flooding, but even down there towards Miami, still likely to get some pretty good flash flooding, especially today, tomorrow, and maybe even while this system is still ongoing. So you guys down there in Miami, all the way up there towards Tampa Bay especially, but even Orlando, you guys all need to really be taking this seriously. So make sure to be on extremely high alert for even some major flash flooding. So even if we don't see the worst storm surge, we still need to be on high alert for that, as this system really does look to pack a punch. So make sure to really get prepared before Milton makes its way towards the Tampa Bay area and makes landfall somewhere around that area. So you guys really do need to be keeping an eye on this closely. Let's also go ahead and take a look at model guidance. This is what supports the potential track and the potential intensity of Milton, okay? And as you guys can see, we are looking at this potentially going right over the Tampa Bay area, pretty much areas along and south of Orlando too as well. Also likely to see some pretty impactful impacts from the system too as well. So you guys, in Orlando, like I said, but especially Tampa Bay, all the way down there towards Cape Coral, and maybe even as far north as Cedar Key, needs to be paying attention to the system, like I said. And it is, pretty big. We can't really, roll out landfall as far down south as Cape Coral or even as far north as Cedar Key, like I said. So, it's always good to prepare just in case. But as of right now, our best area for the system to go would be the Tampa Bay area. That's at least where we have the most agreement on. So like I said, you guys in Tampa, Orlando, all the way up there towards Cedar Key and all the way down there towards Cape Coral and Florida need to be paying attention to the system extremely closely, as it really does look to be causing quite a bit of impacts. And not only that, we also should be looking at the intensity guidance, and the latest from them really does show a pretty strong hurricane. Okay, we're talking the potential for a category 3, category 4 hurricane right there, as you guys can see. So definitely looking to be, pretty impactful by this point. And so we will definitely need to be keeping an eye on this pretty closely. And I'm just going to quickly go ahead and fix something real quick. I'm going to make my things just a little bit smaller just so that they stay out of the way, which I apologize for that. But anyway, we will, continue to watch to see how strong the system really gets. And, like I said, this really does look to have the potential even to get up all the way up there towards category 4 or even category 5 strength. So we definitely need to be watching this extremely carefully for that potential of some, pretty big time landfall. So definitely, continue to watch the intensity guidance too as well, because this could definitely be stronger than anticipated, okay? Especially if the system, really does stay organized. So we will be keeping an eye on that for you. Let's also go ahead and take a look at one more thing. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at it on both Zoom Earth and of course Attic Radar. And as you guys can see, with it being viewed on this one, this does show that it will strengthen to a major hurricane by the time we head into Monday afternoon, and then will continue to strengthen into a category 4 hurricane by the time we head into Wednesday and perhaps Tuesday at the earliest. And then it shows that it will die down just a little bit before it reaches, let's say the Tampa Bay area, but maybe even as far down south as these areas, including Sarasota in Florida. So that's definitely an area we do need to be keeping an eye on too. But like I said, you guys in the Tampa Bay area should still be watching this extremely closely, as impactful landfall is still very possible. And then let's now go ahead and take a view on Zoom Earth. So, we definitely do need to, be watching this closely, like I said. This one also shows, similar scenario where this will likely strengthen all the way up to a category 4 hurricane. But again, it looks to be dying down right before it reaches the Tampa Bay area. So that's one of the reasons why we do need to be keeping an eye on this extremely closely. Because, even if it doesn't make landfall as a major hurricane, high impacts are still going to be likely, so make sure to keep that in mind. So make sure to, be paying attention, and of course be ready by the time this makes landfall, because I really do think this could be, even a category 4 hurricane by the time it makes landfall. So make sure to be ready by that time. Let's now go ahead, and do a little bit of live coverage. Like I said, when we started the stream, we'll also be doing a little bit of live coverage on the storms. And I'm not sure why those are in the way, but let me turn those off. I was just kind of wondering why those storm tracks were in the way, but anyway, like I said, we will definitely be covering a little bit of this also, as we do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for areas south of Rochester, so places like Mendon in New York, all the way over there towards Rush, even Four Corner, and even other areas like Mont's Corner. You guys are under severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and even some penny-sized hail in those areas, and even up there towards Williamson in New York. You guys also need to, be in your safe spots just in case. The storm is starting to look, a little bit on the intenser side of things, so definitely make sure you are paying attention up there in New York if you are under that warning. We got another one down here in Pennsylvania, as you guys can see. We got this one pretty much, along and north of downtown Pittsburgh, and this one's also packing a punch too as well. Thankfully no hail with this one, but this one's still capable of producing some damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. So if you do live north of downtown Pittsburgh, make sure you are in your safe spots just in case, like I said. Let's see here. Amber says, thanks for covering these storms. Praying this one won't be a devastating like Hurricane Helene. Yeah, I really do pray for that too, Amber. And I mean, I was very, very sad about how much Helene, really did to those areas in the Carolinas. I mean, it was crazy. I hope that doesn't happen again either. Like I said, I am praying that this will, turn out to be a much weaker hurricane, but unfortunately, we could be seeing a similar situation, and it might even be worse due to, it potentially going over the Tampa Bay area, because that area easily floods. So we definitely got to be keeping an eye on the Tampa Bay area, the closest, as that area could really be seeing the worst impacts from this hurricane. So like I said, Amber, I do pray for that too as well. But we're also going to be taking a look at some of these other storms too as well, because some of these other storms are also starting to get their acts together too as well, especially these areas north of Pittsburgh. So we got pretty big storm right there, around Ford City, and even these other areas in Dayton, in Pennsylvania. Those areas definitely need to be keeping an eye on these storms. And if you're just joining here, we were also talking about Hurricane Milton. Like I said, this one is still looking to be extremely impactful, like I said, as it will definitely strengthen to a major hurricane, my friends. You guys need to be on extremely high alert if you do live down there in Florida, because this is definitely looking to be at least a Category 3 hurricane, but some even really do point out it being a Category 4 hurricane, and that's exactly what the models right here are showing, and more of them actually just went it up to Category 4 hurricane, and even a couple more even went it up there towards Category 5, unfortunately. So like I said, this is bad news for Florida, but like I said, we are hoping it does weaken by the time we get close to when this makes landfall, because this could definitely be interacting with a little bit of dry air and wind shear around right next to the west coast of Florida, and that could mean a downgrade from a Category 4 all the way to a Category 3. But if that dry air is even stronger, that could very well weaken it even more, and so we're hoping that happens. And like I said, Amber, I'm really praying that this will definitely be a weaker hurricane, but unfortunately still could be a Category 3 or maybe even a Category 4 as it does approach landfall. So that's one of the reasons why this is looking to be a very concerning situation. So like I said, you guys around Tampa need to be getting prepared. Back to the radar again, we are still watching these storms very closely, as some of these other ones could definitely be severe warnings pretty soon, including this one up here, which does look to potentially be strengthening a little bit, as already some pink is showing up, indicating some very, very heavy rain, and sometimes that's even indicates some large hail right there. So that's a storm we still need to keep an eye on. We are still watching the storm just to the south of Rochester, still capable of producing some penny-sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds as it continues up there to the northeast. But, like I said, we are still watching a lot of these storms down there, including this one north of Pittsburgh, still capable of producing those damaging wind gusts. So, like I said, best to be in your safe spots, as, these storms are, capable of maybe even producing some larger hail and, even some stronger winds. We'll have to see how strong these storms really get by the time, they head, towards these areas. But let's go back to Milton again. And like I said, if you are just joining, we are talking about Hurricane Milton. Like I said, as this is really looking to be an impactful hurricane over parts of Florida, including Tampa, maybe even as far east as Orlando. We'll really just have to see what happens. But not only will that wind be a concern, but we're even concerned about that flooding, like I said, including the potential for 8 to 12 inches of rainfall, guys. This is not good news, okay? We really need to be keeping an eye on this extremely closely, as this really does look to bring some huge rainfall totals and huge impacts to parts of central Florida. And we can even look at the chance of wind speeds as it does approach Florida, and the chance of tropical storm force winds are pretty high, okay? We're talking at least a 70 to an 80% chance of tropical storm force winds as it reaches the Tampa Bay area. But as it does get closer, that will likely get up there to a 90 to 100% chance. And you might be wondering about the hurricane force wind probabilities. We actually got a decent chance of that, but like I said, as it does get closer, these winds will likely continue to upgrade, including anywhere from a 20 to even a 30% chance of hurricane force winds along the Florida coast. But like I said, as this does get closer, that will likely reach a 100% chance of hurricane force winds. But they're keeping it a little bit on the lower side of things because like I said, this is still pretty far away from reaching the coast. But as it does get closer, this will likely be more than what it is right now. Let's look at the radar once again, and we also do have a special marine warning in effect too as well, just off of Lake Ontario right there, as you guys can see. And this one is this storm right there that's warned for, let's see, 40-mile-per-hour winds and small hail looks to be the main concern just offshore there of Williamston. But even Sterling right there in New York, you guys really need to be watching that storm just right off the shore, as some pretty big waves and even some pretty big time surge is certainly possible. So that's why we are keeping an eye on it. And like I said, the storm's still capable of producing some penny-sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds just to the south there of Rochester. Like I said, still staying pretty strong and maybe even strengthening too as well. At least that's what it seems like. So definitely continue to be on high alert there. And then back over here towards the Pittsburgh area, we are still keeping a very close eye on this storm heading to the southeast, and this will likely impact places like Penns Hill, Plum, and even New Kingston, and even lower Burrell in Pennsylvania. So you guys, in this severe thunderstorm warning, really do need to be watching this storm extremely closely, as like I said, it is still capable of producing that damaging wind threat. So continue to watch that storm closely. Something else we can also take a look at too as well, and we haven't really been taking a look at these, especially because these seem just a little bit on the weird side of things. But this is another potential track, and that, yeah, as you guys can see, this does want to show this also heading right over central Florida too as well. But this also shows how strong the pressure could be, and some of them does show that it could be 960, some even show 950, some even show briefly 940, and that definitely indicate a category 4, category 5 hurricane right there, as it could very well be close to that as it does reach Florida. And there's actually a second one to that too as well, which would be this one. This one shows it going much farther down south, which would mean that it would be much more away from that wind shear, which means it may not weaken as much, especially if it's far south of where that wind shear is, which the wind shear is actually up here in the southeast, including Georgia, South Carolina. Those areas, have some pretty good wind shear in the higher elevations, and so if this system make landfall farther to the north, this, would mean that it would weaken quite a bit, but because this one shows it making landfall farther down to the south near Fort Myers and Cape Coral, that could definitely mean a stronger hurricane right there due to it being much farther away from that wind shear, like I said. So that could, definitely be a worst case scenario right there, and that's one of the reasons why we are watching this extremely closely. Let's look at the radar again, and yeah, like I said, we are still watching these storms extremely closely as they still look to be bringing that potential for some high winds, and like I said, even some small hail, especially this one south of Rochester. Still watching this one over here near Pittsburgh too, as well, as this one still really does look to be pretty strong, and we are even seeing a pretty good storm right there, right next to the Pittsburgh International Airport, which is pretty bad news. They could definitely be seeing some very heavy rainfall right there by the Pittsburgh Airport, and maybe even some damaging winds already starting to occur. I wouldn't be surprised if this storm right here did get severe warned for some higher wind gusts and even some small hail as it does continue to move to the south. And, feel free to leave anything in the chat, like I said. It can be about Milton, it can be about one of these storms, just whatever you want to leave in the chat, feel free to leave that, and, I will continue to answer your guys' questions as the stream does go on, so feel free to leave any of that down in the chat, like I said. We will continue to watch Milton and, of course, these other storms extremely closely, but let's, go ahead and, take a look at the timing of the arrival winds. We haven't took a look at this yet, but this shows that by the time we head into Monday, it will pretty much be right here, just north of the Yucatan. But as it does continue to the east, I'm pretty sure, landfall Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning will be, the best timing for that landfall, so that could definitely be an overnight hurricane, by the time it does start to make landfall, which would be bad news because, people really do need their sleep, but you guys may even need to be staying up, guys. This could definitely make landfall Tuesday night, guys. It will be right offshore Tuesday at 8 p.m., but when it does reach on shore and makes landfall, that will more than likely be right around midnight, guys. And that is crazy. I hope you guys, are really prepared to even stay up just in case this really does make landfall during the nighttime hours on Tuesday and into Wednesday morning. At least that's when it's expected to make landfall this week. But unfortunately, like I said, you guys may really need to be staying up as the system really does get close to making landfall. So definitely get ready for that, and we might even have to worry even more about landfall due to it making it during the nighttime hours. And I am gonna get a drink real quick, so I'll be right back, and just stay right here. Alright, I just wanted to get a quick drink of water because I was pretty thirsty. I get very thirsty fast during my live streams, but let's see here. Amber says, if I live in Florida, I would be out of there before Milton comes. That is absolutely right, Amber. I would definitely do that too. It's always good to, be out just in case, it really does cause some major impacts. And like I said, even if it doesn't end up being a Category 4, Category 3 hurricane as it makes landfall, this will still cause some major impacts, especially because Tampa, like I said, floods very easily. So, like I said, Amber, that is definitely correct. So I would definitely, evacuate and get out of there too if I lived there. And I would probably, drive all the way up there towards, like Panama City to get away from this big center of the storm. So, like I said, that is absolutely right. And then, for these areas back up here to the north, we are still watching, these areas just to the south of Rochester. For, like I said, we do have that potential for, some 60-mile-per-hour winds and still some penny-sized hail, as that system is still strong. It looks like it's starting to weaken a little bit, but we'll still keep an eye on it, but still continue to be indoors, away from windows, and perhaps be in your safe spot if you do live south there, Rochester, and continuing to head close there towards Walworth in New York. And then back down here, just to the northeast of Pittsburgh, so places like Plum, Penn's Hills, White, you guys need to be, indoors away from windows, and like I said, perhaps your safe spot, as the system really does look to still, at least be on the concerning side of things, as it's still is capable of producing some 60-mile-per-hour winds. So, like I said, we'll continue to keep an eye on it. And then, back, down here, towards Florida again, like I said, not a guarantee that we'll see landfall in, Tampa. But like I said, this could still, make landfall as far down south as Cape Coral, and it looks like that kind of uncertainty actually shift a little bit far down to the south, which is very concerning. So that's why we are, going to continue to keep an eye on it. And, even up there towards Clearwater, those areas could even, see some landfall too as well. We'll just have to watch extremely closely, for that potential. And sorry about that background noise. I apologize for that. That's just, my mom trying to print off a few things, so don't get too worried about any background noise, guys. I apologize for that, like I said. But like I said, Tampa, you guys look to be an area to watch the closest, but even areas as far north as Cedar Key right there, or even areas as far down south as Cape Coral, or even as far down south as Everglades City in Florida, you guys need to be on extremely high alert. And yeah, that's definitely looking to be, the area to see the worst landfall as, the system does get closer. Let's, go ahead and take a look at those at the hurricane models. This is something, we haven't took a look at yet, but we are going to be taking a look at this now before we forget. And this is, using the hurricane models. We're going to go to the wind, and we were even looking at these models during my last video that I did earlier today. I didn't know if you guys saw that or not, but we were looking at hurricane models, and the latest from this one does show it gain all the way down there towards I'm pretty sure that's almost mid Category 5 hurricane, guys, 918 millibars. The only difference is that this hurricane is much smaller compared to Helene. Helene was much bigger and cause much more widespread damaging winds, but this one is going to be much smaller, thankfully. But look what happens as it gets closer. That pressure starts to go up, which indicates that it starts to weaken, and look at that, it goes anywhere from 918 all the way up to 954, guys. That is a huge change compared to what it could be in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it is rapidly intensifying, but like I said, if it makes landfall farther to the north, which this model does show that, this will likely interfere with some huge amounts of dry air that could be around, and this could, even weaken due to a lot of wind shear too as well. So that's exactly why this model shows it dying down a lot by the time it reaches that area, which would be the best case, like I said, but could still definitely be a huge problem. Let's look at another model. This is the HAF SB model that we're just getting ready to take a look at now, and this one does show it a little bit stronger before landfall, but still shows it dying down quite a bit. And this one does actually show it a little bit on the weaker side of things. Before it even reaches the Florida coast. So this could definitely be more of a Category 4 hurricane than a Category 5, because that other model showed it more Category 5. This is more high in Category 4, and like I said, if it does interfere with that wind shear or dry air, this will likely die down quite a bit. Let's see here. Holiday in Inflatables says, Sam, we are cooked. Yes, we are cooked, my friend. We are really struggling with Milton, and this is definitely not good news after Hurricane Helene. So like I said, we're hoping that this doesn't turn out to be as bad, but we will keep an eye on it just in case. Let's look at a few more hurricane models now. This is using the Herman model, and this one does show more of a Category 4 hurricane, but actually getting right next to Category 5 hurricane right there, as it does reach 925 millibars. And like I said, if it does interfere with that dry air and even that wind shear, this will likely die down back to Category 2, Category 3 hurricane by the time it gets close to the Tampa Bay area. And like I said, the cone of uncertainty really did show that making landfall south of Tampa. And like I said, this could very well, be as far north of Cedar Key or as far down south as, Naples or Cape Coral, but does show it south of Tampa, which probably means it won't interfere with much dry air, but will still probably weaken a little bit, as like I said, a lot of these models really do show that. And let's look at a couple more. This is the HWRF parent model. And this one does alright whenever forecasting hurricanes, but look at what this one shows, okay? This is the only model that indicates this really strengthening near Category 4, but also shows it a Category 4 hurricane, at least a low-end Category 4, by the time it reaches the Tampa area. This is the only model that shows it staying that strong before it makes landfall in Florida. We're hoping that it's not that strong, but after taking a look at this model, I am not ruling it out now, guys. You guys in Florida, like I said, in between Cedar Key all the way down towards Naples and Cape Coral, really do need to be on extremely high alert, as this is going to be concerning. Let's look at just one more model now. This is the HAFSA parent model, okay? So a little bit different compared to the HAFS A model, but still does do pretty good whenever forecasting hurricanes. And this one does show a Category 5 hurricane, as that pressure reaches all the way down towards 920 millibars, but this one does show the same thing, as it will likely weaken before it makes landfall in Florida. So like I said, when we were looking at the HWRF parent model, that one was the only one that really did show this staying, at least a Category 4 hurricane before making landfall. And so, like I said, I am not ruling it out, but I don't think it's actually going to be that strong, because most do show that it will interfere with some dry air. So that's what we're hoping for, but obviously not a guarantee. Let's look at a couple more hurricane models. We're going to look at the HAFSB parent model. This is another pretty good one. This one does show a little bit different scenario, but still does show it weakening quite a bit before making landfall in Florida there, as you guys can see. So that, is something that we still need to be keeping a close eye on, as, this could definitely, bring some pretty huge impacts to those areas, in Tampa. And like I said, if this does make landfall, along and north of Tampa, that's where this will likely interfere with even more wind shear and dry air. And, that's even when we do have the potential for maybe this to become even a weak hurricane. That's something we are watching for. But like I said, not a guarantee, especially if it gets really, really strong, okay? Which means it would be able to last a lot longer. And, if it's more organized, probably could handle quite a bit of dry air. Which, like I said, we're hoping that doesn't happen. But we will be keeping an eye on it just in case. And the last two we're going to look at is the European model. This is another pretty good one we like to look at sometimes whenever doing forecasting. And the European model doesn't really show this getting that strong, which does make me feel a little bit better, but it's still, probably, all the cars probably an outlier by this point, because this only shows a category 1 hurricane before making landfall, and then only shows a tropical storm by the time it approaches the Tampa Bay area. So I'm pretty sure the European model as of right now is pretty well an outlier by this point, as this one only shows a category 1 hurricane. Let's see here. Amber says, prepare for the worst, hope and pray for the best. Exactly. I do too as well, Amber. And, if you're down there, stay safe, my friend. Stay safe. And then the last model we're going to look at is the GFS model. This is, another one. I think I agree a little bit more with the GFS, but the GFS is probably still a pretty big outlier, as it only shows about a category 2 hurricane, and only shows about a low in category 1 hurricane by the time it makes landfall in Florida. So, it still does remain uncertain on how exactly, this will play out as it does get close to making landfall in Florida. But, I think this will definitely be a major hurricane, and that's exactly what we're seeing from the latest from the National Hurricane Center, like I said. So I think we can at least agree on a category 3 hurricane, but this could very well be a category 4, as it does make landfall only if it organizes more, like I said, and if it really does stay well south of that dry and wind shear, like I said. So that's something to really be watching for. Let's check on these storms again up here to the north. That severe thunderstorm warning has just expired, so you can go outside and do whatever you want now, as there's no warning currently in effect for those areas south of Rochester, and those storms have been past Rochester, so you guys along and south of Rochester are good to go. We still do have a warning for areas to the northeast of Pittsburgh, and we are still keeping an eye on closely, even for these storms, including this one that has just passed the Pittsburgh International Airport, and this one does still have the potential to maybe produce some gusty winds, but I don't think this one is going to be as dangerous anymore, as this has already weakened quite a bit. But this one right here, just to the northeast of Pittsburgh, still capable of producing some 60-mile-per-hour winds, so we will still be keeping an eye on that one for sure. And then if we look at the National Hurricane Center again, I'm going to go ahead and quickly refresh this, because I'm pretty sure the National Hurricane Center has just done another update. So let's see what they say. Let's see. The latest advisory was at 4 p.m., but that's just talking about what this could be. But this is just talking about what it could be, like I said. But, for the updates, like on the cone of uncertainty, it, hasn't really changed much. But, yeah, it definitely will reach a major hurricane and rapidly intensify these next few days, as that's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see here. Robert Johnson says, "Hi, it's been raining here south of Rochester, but hasn't been bad." Oh, good. I'm glad it hasn't been bad for you, Robert Johnson. But I mean, yeah, it definitely did rain. At least a little bit. You must have. I'm pretty sure you were well south of those storms. So yeah, definitely was on the lighter side of things. But at least those storms weren't super bad. But I'm at least glad that rain wasn't too bad for you, my friend. I'm glad it was. Um, I'm glad it was on the lighter side of things. But like I said, from the National Hurricane Center, like I said, nothing too much has changed, but still expected to strengthen to a Category 3 hurricane by the time it does, get close to making landfall there, in Florida. So that's something that we do need to keep an eye on. I don't think we're going to do coverage for this area, but, even areas in the Yucatan do need to, also be keeping an eye on this too as well. So we definitely, will be watching you guys in the Yucatan too as well. If there's anyone from the Yucatan, so that's something that we do need to be keeping an eye on, like I said, but we are mainly concerned about the Florida area as that's where the biggest landfall looks to be occurring. Let's check with the latest on the rainfall totals, and yeah, we are still about the same, as we still expect there to be some pretty big amounts of 8 to 12 inches, anywhere from Tampa all the way through Orlando, and maybe even as far east as Daytona Beach, and even areas just to the north there of Orlando, which will be the areas to watch the closest, as this system still does look to really be strong by the time it makes landfall. So like I said, we will still continue to keep an eye on it. Let's see here. Amber says, "I wish we could get some rain here in Idaho. We got wildfires nonstop." Yes, I know. That has been a pretty big problem up there in Idaho. And, we kind of do need to, be watching for that fire potential. And, I also wanted to let you guys know, especially in the Ohio Valley Midwest, that there is an elevated risk for wildfires. And like I said, Amber, yes, there were, quite a bit of nonstop fire risks up there in Idaho, but those have finally gone away, and we, are mainly concerned about areas in the Midwest and Ohio Valley for that elevated fire potential for the rest of today, maybe even into tomorrow morning. So, this is still going to be something to be aware about. So, if you do live here in the Midwest or Ohio Valley, burning is definitely not going to be a thing you should do, as this is still, very favorable for some pretty big, rapid spreading fire conditions. But yeah, I hope these areas in the Rocky Mountains do get a break, from those wildfires, but unfortunately it still does look like we could see some, especially in the future, as it does look to be dry. So yeah, we will definitely keep you updated on the fire risk, Amber, just in case we do end up seeing anything crazy over there. But as of right now, it's not looking too bad, and like I said, thankfully they do get a break. Let's, go back to the National Hurricane Center, and like I said about the rainfall, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of rainfall is definitely possible. We are still concerned about areas, like Miami. Those areas could still pick up anywhere from 4 to 6 inches widespread, but even some isolated totals of 8 to 12 inches cannot be rolled out near Miami. It's especially going to be Key West, and, even those areas in extreme southern Florida likely to see anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of rain as well, and even a little bit of red right next to the Naples and Fort Myers area, showing anywhere from 12 to 16 inches. I actually wouldn't roll that out either, so definitely gonna be something that we really do need to be keeping an eye on, like I said. But back to the radar again. Like I said, we are still watching these storms up there in Pittsburgh, as these still look to be on the concerning side of things. So that's, something that we are still keeping an eye on, as the storm still do look to at least be capable of producing some 60-mile-per-hour winds. Any of the storms up here to the north have more than likely died down, so we should at least be fine. But like I said, these storms aren't as concerning as what they were, a couple of minutes ago when they were severe warning. But thankfully, they are not as strong as, what they were. So, but we will still be keeping an eye on it just in case. And, let's also go ahead and take a look at, a little bit more on the hurricane models. And one model that we haven't took a look at is the Herman model. I don't think we took a look at that one yet. That one does show a much weaker hurricane, but does show it rapidly dying down before it reaches the Florida coast. So that, like I said, that would be good news. But we will have to watch and see how this plays out before it makes landfall, because worst case scenario would be this makes landfall as a category 4 or 5 hurricane, but best case scenario would be that this dies down due to dry air and wind shear, especially if it's not going to be as organized. Up here towards, Pennsylvania again, still got that warning in effect for areas just to the northeast there of Pittsburgh. Still capable of producing some 60-mile-per-hour winds, but not really looking like anything too crazy overall. We are still watching some other storms like this one, including rain, which, is starting to see some very heavy rain right now. And so we'll continue to keep an eye on some more storms to see if they get severe warning pretty soon. And other than that, we don't really have any more warnings across the United States, and I'm going to go ahead and update that. Yeah, we really just have one severe thunderstorm warning now, which is good. And it looks like that one has expired, which is great. That is great, but I assume another storm will get severe warning pretty soon, especially because, some of these are really trying to get their acts together, so we're not going to be surprised if we do see another severe warning, and that's why I'm just going to keep it on one warning for right now. But back to the National Hurricane Center again. Like I said, we are still watching for some pretty big impacts. We haven't took a look at this yet. And this is pretty much how much storm surge we could see, which they haven't forecasted yet, but this is the possibility of how much storm surge we could see. And this one is indicating the worst storm surge near the Tampa Bay area, okay? We're talking maybe 9-foot plus storm surge. It depends on how strong this is by the time it makes landfall near those areas, but this does show up to 9 feet in some areas in the Tampa Bay area, unfortunately. And so, that's one of the reasons why we are extremely concerned. Like I said, Tampa floods easily, and because of this Bay Area, that could definitely cause some major issues right there. So we are going to continue to keep an eye on that. Areas farther down to the south, like Cape Coral, some areas may get, anywhere from 7, maybe even as much as 9 feet in some areas. We'll just have to watch. So that's, the reason why we are going to continue to keep an eye on it. And, maybe even some 9-foot storm surge. We'll just have to see how strong this hurricane, gets, which will determine on if we even see that high of storm surge. But this is pretty much indicating the worst case scenario. And so, that's why we are watching this extremely closely. But like I said, feel free to leave anything in the chat that you haven't left, including, questions about Milton, or even, other questions, about the storm. So feel free to leave any of that in the chat. Like I said, we will continue to be live for another couple minutes or so, especially if we still have some things to worry about. But we mostly did everything that we wanted to. We don't have any warnings to worry about anymore, but we will still be alive for a little bit longer, like I said, just in case we do end up seeing a severe thunderstorm warning or two with one of these storms. So that's one of the reasons why we're gonna continue to keep an eye on it, like I said. So that's one of the things we do need to be worrying about. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And then let's look at just a few more things, including the risk for severe weather. So we're gonna go to the Storm Prediction Center website, and we're gonna look at the risk for severe weather down there in Florida. This is something I forgot to do, by the way, but I also wanted to tell you guys that we do have a marginal risk for severe weather by the time we head into Tuesday, just right before landfall, where a lot of storms from the hurricane will likely fly off and start, causing some pretty big issues across, parts of Florida, including the Tampa and as well as the Miami region. So that's, something to really be watching extremely closely right there. As this does look to maybe bring some severe weather by the time we head into Tuesday. Let's see here. Robert Johnson says, concerned with Milton due to how close to Helene it is, and Fura already having a full plate. Yeah, I know. It's, pretty crazy, how close this really is, to where Helene made landfall. And, I don't think this is gonna be super close, especially because this is expected to be, more, south of the Tampa area, but I still do think these areas up there towards, Cedar Key maybe still have a chance of, some impacts. And like I said, it's always good to be prepared just in case, but I think this will more than likely be along or south of Tampa, just from what I know so far. So like I said, not a guarantee, but we will watch closely though, like I said. So that's why we are going to definitely watch closely to see what it does. Back up here towards the storms again, still watching to see if any of these storms up here to the north strengthen as it does, continue to, move to the east, including, Indiana, which, it's kind of weird, but this is actually a city in Pennsylvania, by the way, just located, right there. So, like I said, this is, a storm we still need to, be keeping an eye on, as this, still does continue to head to the southeast. So definitely continue to watch this line of storms closely if you do live in Indiana in Pennsylvania, or if you do live in South Bend in Pennsylvania, and even Indiana. Like I said, you guys definitely need to be paying attention to the system extremely closely, so definitely continue to do so. And then let's also go ahead and take a look at a few more things on the National Hurricane Center website. We're also going to go ahead and read the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center, which was the 4 p.m. advisory, and it says Milton is forecasted to become a major hurricane when it reaches the west coast of Florida peninsula by midweek. Users are reminded to not focus on details of the forecast, as there remains significantly uncertain in the eventual track and intensity of Milton. While it's too soon to specify the exact magnitude and location of the greatest impacts, there is an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds for portions of Florida and the Florida Peninsula beginning Wednesday, and storm surge and hurricane watches will likely be issued tonight or early Monday morning, which would be tomorrow. Residents in the Florida Peninsula should follow any advice given by the officials and monitor updates to the forecasts. And then, the last one is areas of heavy rain will impact portions of Florida through Monday, as in well ahead of Milton, with heavy rain and more directly related to Milton expected on Tuesday through Wednesday night. This rainfall will be bringing the risk of considerable flooding, urban and aerial flooding, along with the potential for moderate to major river flooding. And then, this one is just saying that tropical storm conditions are expected, with hurricane conditions possible beginning Monday across the northern Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, where a tropical storm warning or hurricane watch are in effect. So, that's pretty much this area all the way down there, right here towards the Yucatan of Mexico. So, this probably won't make a direct hit, but this will, still be bringing, some pretty high winds and, maybe even some storm surge to the Yucatan. So that's why we are watching this area extremely closely. And then these areas up here to the north that are dealing with these storms still don't have a whole lot of concerning storms just yet, and some of them are even starting to die down quite a bit, but we will still be watching these extremely closely, as some of these still do have the potential to produce some gusty winds and even some small hail. So we will still continue to be watching those closely as they do continue to get closer. And so, we will definitely, continue to keep an eye on it, as that does look to be on the concerning side of things. Let's also go ahead and, take a look at just a couple more things. We can also go ahead and look at satellite imagery to see how well, let's see, we just gotta wait for this to load, but to really just see how well, let's see. But like I said, it's just really to see how well Milton is doing, and yeah, I mean, it is really doing well, as you guys can see. It's really is doing well out there, as it's already starting to organize. We are even starting to see those purple colors pop up, just really indicating some high, clouds and even some very heavy precipitation, which really does indicate that it's strengthening. Let's see here. Raven says hi. Hi there, Raven. Thanks for joining my live stream. Feel free to leave anything in the chat that you have. We don't have anything concerning up here going on in parts of Pennsylvania. So, we already been, talking quite a bit about Milton, and, we can go over this just a few more times, just so that way you guys get a good understanding. But we are going to end this live stream pretty soon, because we talked about most things about Milton, and, like I said, we don't really have any warnings, yet across, parts of Pennsylvania. If that continues, that's definitely good news, but we won't really need to be worrying about that too much. But, like I said about Milton, still watching, to see this rapidly intensify to potentially a category 3 hurricane by the time we head into Monday afternoon, which will be tomorrow. And still does look to, really be, a major hurricane by the time it, makes landfall in Florida. And, it remains uncertain whether it will be strong or not, whether it will be a Category 5, 4, or 3. More than likely a Category 3, but we still don't know exactly what this is going to do by the time it makes it up there. But that's why we are still going to continue to keep an eye on it as it does get closer. And same goes for that potential for flooding. We still got that risk for flash flooding across parts of Florida, especially areas along and north of the Tampa Bay area, but even down there towards Miami should also be on alert too as well, and even areas in between too as well. And then, for the potential rainfall, we do expect there to be a few areas where we do expect quite a bit of rainfall. Southern Florida especially does have the potential for 8 to 12 inches, but even, areas up here along the north of Orlando and as well as the Tampa Bay area, we could definitely see, some pretty high rainfall totals of 8 to 12 inches too, as well as the system, still continues up to the north. So that's why we are gonna continue to keep an eye on it pretty closely, as this really does look to bring some pretty major impacts to parts there of Florida. So that's why we are going to continue to keep an eye on it. And then warnings haven't gotten issued yet, but will likely be issued by the time we head into tomorrow morning. So definitely be ready for that, just in case any watches or warnings do get issued. So that's why we are going to be keeping an eye on it, as this does continue to get closer. But we don't have any more warnings in effect. Like I said, we just went over most things about Milton. So if you do have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll just be live for a few more minutes, just in case you guys have anything to ask about this tropical system. And I think we're gonna end it there, because like I said, we already been going over everything about Milton, and we also are pretty close to where we are almost done with storm coverage too, as well, as these storms are already dying down, and that's mainly due to the surface heating, because it's dark outside, surface heating stopped, and that's why these storms are really dying down quite a bit. So like I said, if you got any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat right now, and we will end our stream pretty soon. So make sure to leave anything down below that you want to, and we will definitely answer any questions that you guys have. But, we are still, like I said, we are still watching, for that rapid intensification, and that's why we are just going to be here on satellite imagery before we end our live stream, just to watch the system really, get strength together. So that's why we are, continuing to watch this system extremely closely. And like I said, feel free to leave any questions in the chat. This is your last chance before we end our live stream right here. Like I said, we already talked about everything, and there isn't really much to talk about now, as we already covered everything about what we can expect with Milton. And I will be doing a weather update tomorrow about that, and maybe even another live stream, just depending on how much the system really does strengthen. So we will definitely continue to keep you guys updated with the latest with the system. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below, so that way you are notified whenever I do video or go live. And of course, it even helps out a lot too as well, so make sure to do all that, and that will definitely help me out quite a bit, including if you want me to make a lot of my things better on my live streams and my videos. Those will continue to get better as long as you guys continue subscribing to my YouTube channel. And like I said, we will continue to keep you guys posted with the latest, and I hope you guys all have a great weekend, and we are going to go ahead and end it right here.